All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite warlock and practicing necromancer here. On one of my fur I wouldn't call it furthest, but more recent videos, an individual, uh, someone who's followed me for in my work for now for a good long while, has asked a very good question, and I wanted to kind of just jump on here real fast and kind of talk about this. So I'm going to start off by reading what he left. Okay. Shadow Man says, I've been feeling so burnt out, without energy to do any magic. My tools are gone, and I'm feeling powerless. I don't know what's going on, but I'm not giving up. Any advice you could share? Great content, by the way. Very valuable knowledge and wisdom. Unfortunately, on my cell phone, I can't read the rest of it, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot longer than that. So, from what I can see on my cell phone, a lot of times being burnt out means that it's time for a break. Okay. I'm not talking a break from magic or life in itself. I mean, we all need a break from time to time. What I would recommend to you, Shadow Man, is this: take a couple of days off to sit back, relax, and contemplate. Hell, even take a spiritual bath and do a reset. That's always good from time to time. Every so often, I will clean my altar. I will do the whole reset button. The reason for that is because of the fact that it doesn't matter if it's your altar room or yourself. We all have multiple things going on, be it jobs, be it family life, even issues with our magic. Okay. You got to remember that blockages can happen from just about every turn. Okay. It could be something minor or trivial as being pain, for an example. Getting yourself into a state of negativity. Okay. When we get into a state of negativity, this sets up a block, a roadblock, and it prevents positive things from coming in. I'm going to give you a tool that I want you to envision. And in fact, you can actually write it down. Okay. It's called the equal armed cross. Okay. Think of a plus sign. Now, in the center, I want you to draw a circle where both horizontal and vertical lines meet. Okay. Now, you have good and evil, light and dark. Okay. Now, I want you to look at those four little spaces in the center as being the four soul types. Okay. Now, as you create more circles in this depiction, you could add more and more and more to the chart. Okay. Now, what's interesting here is you mentioned your ritual tools. Now, I don't know if that means that you lost them say for example they were stolen, or that they just simply stopped working. And if that's the case, let's say for example they stopped working, you may have overused them, okay, overtaxed them, and it may take some time for them to recharge. Okay. One of the things that I like to do with my ritual tools is I like to reconsecrate them every so often, cleanse them with an incense smoke and flame. Because I am an Aries, for an example, fire is my best friend, just like a cardinal. Okay. The color red. Okay. So you want to look at your birth sign. So what I would do is I wouldn't just shed my own blood, charge it up, feed the tool. You got to remember that your altar tools, such as your athame, your wand, your chalice, your skull, for an example, is considered to be a dark totem. If you have created them properly, you really want to make sure that they remain in complete darkness, only to be brought out during rituals and ceremonies. The rest of the time, they remain bound in, say, black satin. Okay. Um, you may want to try to feed them every so often as well. Okay. Feed them your blood. Take them to a graveyard and let them, or some kind of hollowed ground, like say an abandoned church, or, oh, I don't know, let's go out into the woods, maybe a clearing. Bury them. Okay. Let them soak up the lunar cycles. Okay. Personally, I would recommend full moon to a full moon. Okay. To help create them within your system of magic. Okay. This here will allow you to utilize them in the full context of what they're created for. You also want to give them a purpose, a name. All right. Now, if they were stolen, you could always buy new ones. Okay. You can always get new ones and learn from your mistakes. And in this case, let's say, for an example, they were stolen. I would recommend making them into an accursed object. An accursed object, meaning curse them. The only person who can touch them would be you and those you give permission to handle them. Okay. But let's say, for an example, you've overtaxed them. You've basically did not charge them properly, and you still have them. It's just nothing's going according to plan or what you're trying to accomplish. You may want to go back to the drawing board and cleanse these items. Okay, cleanse yourself. In fact, I recommend that you cleanse yourself. And the reason for that is because of the fact that negativity and baneful energies and currents can literally attach themselves to you. And when you get frustrated, you get annoyed, you get angry, you get bitter, things start going awry. Let's say, for an example, in this case, you're angry at work. It's affecting your relationships. It's affecting, with your better half or your children. Okay, it's affecting your work, and it creates a state of road rage where there's a bunch of small little pebbles that have built up over a long stretch of time to where you have an explosive demeanor. Okay. So it is very important to cleanse yourself, cleanse your tools every so often, charge them. Every time you invoke or evoke a spirit into your ritual chamber, your inner sanctum, you are, in fact, opening up those gates and portals to the point where they are being charged by the current that you're working. Okay. Now, the way you put it here, and I'm going to bring this right up real fast, is you said, and I quote, you've been feeling so burnt out, okay, without energy. Normally, this means that you need a vacation, okay? But in a magical sense, it's not just you that's being affected, it's also your magic. And this tells me that you have been weighed down with with a, should I say this? Think of the old execution method of a rope to a around your ankle or ankles being weighed down with cinder blocks. Best way I can describe that to you. That's what you're feeling. Like nothing's worth it. You don't even see the point to continue, but yet at the same time, you know you can't give up. Okay, this is something that's been bred into each of us. Never give up. Never surrender. Okay, there is always something that you can do. Purification, renunciations are there for a reason. Okay, spiritual baths. You want to cleanse yourself, your apartment, or your home. You want to cleanse and purify every aspect of yourself in your ritual um, locations. Okay, this is basically setting that dial back to zero. Okay, so you can begin again. I like going back to the beginning from time to time because it allows me to get a fresh perspective on things, but it also allows me to observe in a new capacity. Okay, something I may have something I overlooked or something I missed through my initial studies and practices. For an example, I've been going through Indonesian witchcraft, black magic, the shamanism as a dukan, working with and studying Santet, which is basically loosely translated as harm without touch. Okay. This is done by the Javanese peoples. Okay. Both Central and Eastern uh, philosophies. Malaysia, for an example, the islands surrounding them, not just Indonesia in itself, but it is such an interesting study that every time I go back into black magic and I go to perform something to benefit myself or somebody else, let's say a client, I'm reminded of something else that I didn't take into consideration originally. Okay. For an example, when we do baneful sorcery, we are utilizing tools such as razors, things like needles, okay? Things like athames, things like your chalice and libations, things that you would normally give offerings and sacrifices with, okay? A lancet, for an example, a bloodletting device will help you draw the blood you need. And normally it's like 3 drops of blood is all you really need as a sacrifice and an offering to the spirits that you're working with. So when I first began, I didn't know anything about lancets. I didn't know much about things about black magic, blood sorcery and all that. I knew blood was always used from a Hollywood perspective, but It wasn't until I delved into the research through archaeology, through anthropology, um, thanatology, getting into historical, folkloric, even mythological, supernatural traditions, such as Voodoo, Santeria, Pero Mayambi, the African Caribbean traditions. Hell, even getting into Satanism through demonology. Okay, these are things that will benefit you and and not just invite these spirits into your world and into your life, but they also form a connection to where you are feeding them for to replenish the energies that they, and I'm going to say this again, that they expel to come to see you. Okay, so when we get into this, you're going to come to a point where it's almost like a, how should I say this, a dulling down effect. Okay, in this case, the energy loss. Hell, you work say 16-hour shifts. You're going to come out of a workplace completely exhausted. Now, let's say for an example, you do two 12-hour shifts and two 16-hour shifts. That's doing a single 12-hour shift 2 nights in a row, and then you're working two 16 shifts, which are double shifts, because a normal shift is roughly around about 8.5 hours, minus the 30-minute lunch break. Okay, so in actuality, you're looking at 8 hours. All right. So either way, you would be drained, even when working with these spirits and working with the currents that you're working with. And one of the biggest things that continuously allows you to recharge is the fact that you're using a vampiric effect of energy transference. You're replenishing your energy as you're dispelling it to open gates and portals to call upon these spirits. But there's a downside. You've all Just about anybody who's gotten into Wicca, paganism, Satanism, um, Voodoo, or any other tradition knows that if you don't properly ground yourself and close those gates after, it's like a suction cup. It's just going to keep taking and taking and leaving you so drained. It's like you got nothing, no energy, nothing to do anything with. You don't even have the energy to go feed yourself. Okay. Now, we expel energy because of being constantly moving. Okay. We replenish ourselves through the foods that we eat, both good and bad foods. Okay. If you look at the food, and I'm going to use this as an example, let's say we do sweets. Let's say, oh, I don't know, let's go with devil dogs or brownies. All that sugar, all that chocolate. Okay. It may taste good. It may taste good where you want more. But did you consider what it's doing to your kidneys? Okay? Think about that for just a minute. What is it doing to your kidneys? All that sugar. It's clogging them up because you're not drinking enough H2O. H2O, water. Okay? It would be like eating pan after pan after pan of brownies and cookies and cakes, and then turning around and drinking all kinds of soda. Okay, eventually your kidneys are going to be so clogged that they're not going to function properly. So then you would have to go, okay, I'm going to get into something different. I'm going to have to adapt. So let's start eating salads. Let's get these enzymes going to help replenish the kidneys. Okay, drink a lot of fluids. This will help clean out your bladder, your 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 liver even. Okay, the liver is one of the most how should I say this? Most trying to think of the word I'm thinking of here. Think of the liver as one of those redemptive, highly redemptive organs that you have in your body. Okay, your kidneys can drop to where you're running on a half a kidney. Okay, just a half a kidney, running on one kidney between two. Okay, that's a half a kidney gone. But as soon as you mix up your diet, you get away from the sugars, you get away from the sweets, you get away from all the caffeine and the sodas. All of a sudden, your body starts waking up. Okay, it would be like working out. You're weightlifting. You feel good. Okay, you're walking 4.2 miles, and that's both directions, by the way. Whereas 2.1 miles would be one direction. So, in a magical sense, you've got to remember that there are three aspects to yourself. You have your spiritual body, you have your physical body, and then you have what is known as the emotional side. Okay, the toll that it takes place in the brain. We refer to this as the shadow brain, portion of the brain back here. Okay, right back here, and this is normally where we pull and push, shuffle and recompartmentalize all the lesser pains and obstacles, that frustrations that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Okay, things that we're not ready to prepare to deal with, or we just don't have time to deal with. So we, straighten in the back of the mind, and then we end up forgetting about it, and over time it festers and you have a blowout from the festering emotions. Think Mount Olympus or Yellowstone National Park. You know, a volcano erupting, and that's basically what that is. If you're an Aries, you're probably or a Gemini, you're going to be quick to anger. You're going to be quick to such rage, fiery, passionate rage, and then you're going to be stubborn, especially if you're a Gemini. And you'd have to step back and really do some reshuffling of your own to figure out, okay, why did this happen? Was it a spirit trying to get our attention? A lot of times when the spirits cut us off, it is due to I refer to it as a white walling effect. This is a white wall effect. And it's due to the fact that they want us to learn something. Okay. Now, if you're not learning, it's done until you start learning. Other times it will be directed at your friends and your family and eventually at you. Okay. But if you learn to deal with that emotion and those afflictions, a lot of people would hit the gym, they would work out, they would gain the endorphins to keep that adrenaline going and keeping the blood flowing in a more healthy manner. Okay. Women, we all know women folk have a tendency to explain themselves a lot better. They deal with emotions a lot better than us guys. Okay. Trust me, my better half constantly is hounding me on expressing my anger and frustration. It's like, no, you're not going to listen. You're not going to do what you're not going to take my suggestions or whatever. So what's the point of talking about it, right? Well, wrong. Say for example, about a week ago, prime example, a couple of weeks ago, I had to deal with my knee. Okay. The reason for that is because I've had injuries to my knees in the past. I've had partially torn ligaments. I've had a carpenter nail go through my left knee. So every so often I get a blow up, and it's frustrating as all hell because it's like nobody fucking cares but me. So Number one, I have to work on this, and I don't get help from my coworker. So that's building up frustration and anger. Okay, even though we've got two more dietary aids, two more aides, and we've got three chefs. Okay, you say if we need help, you need help, call for backup. Well, when you call for backup, where the fuck is it, right? Hmm, I don't know. Playing on their phones and whatever, right? So, so if we look at this, that's a type of affliction. Okay, that's the type of affliction I'm talking about right there, where it's frustrating, it's anger, it's festering pins and needles, if you will, that you're putting into your back of the mind because you're at work, you can't say shit, you got to watch what you're doing. So by the time you get home, you're already exhausted mentally and emotionally from your work. Okay, especially if you're doing the work of five people. If those of you who work in the medical field, you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially with the lack of employees. Okay, but then you take on the fact that you're trying to meditate, you're trying to study, you're trying to apply the gnosis to your practices. You're trying to do all these rituals with these spirits, these demons, and it's like nothing's going wrong. Everything's going wrong, nothing's happening, you're getting frustrated, is this even fucking worth it? You know what I'm saying? So this is where you want to take a step back. Okay, you want to take a step back. You want to go in, meditate. I would definitely recommend meditation to you. Remote viewing is something that is very, very good because it's not just about reflecting upon the day's events or trying to focus in and how should I say this? Get involved with an object or a person in another part of your household. Okay. Let's say, for example, you're in a sanctum and you're focusing on, like, say, the TV out in the living room. Okay. Whole another portion. That's a form of remote viewing. But you want to remote view upon the day's events. Let it go. De-stress. Okay. If if you're like me, you probably turned to alcohol in the past to the point where that's not an issue. Okay, that's no longer needed. So you got to find other ways to express yourself. Like I said, weightlifting, working out, but you can also learn to ground yourself. Okay. Personally, what I recommend when going into a ritual chamber is leave the outside world where it is. Outside. Go in. Pitch black altar room. Pitch black. Stand there for a moment. Let it in. Let it all in. Okay. And then light the incense, the candles, sit down and meditate. Meditate for a little bit. Place your palms face down in a circle. Let's say, for example, you're in a pentagram. Place your hands in that top section between the two horns, if you will, the top 2 points. Focus your intent of that energy being transferred. You've awakened this portal, this dimensional portal. So you're getting rid of the negative energy through your left hand and you're bringing in the more positive, beneficial to your right. Okay. These are some things that I would recommend for you to do. And on top of that, uh, make sure to feed your tools. That's a big thing. You know, one of the things that I would recommend is if you're working with spirits and you're working with the tools, you want to give an offering, like, say, financial stuff, anything that deals with your path work. Okay. Put some money aside from your paycheck into a specially designed box that is specifically for those spirits and for the current that you're working with. It's called an offering box. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you cover everything when you're not using them. That's the biggest thing I recommend. They are dark totems. They are dark art. These are not only cursed items, but they are rituals of great importance and power to your path work. So, I can't speak to what's going on in your personal life, Shadow Man. So, only you can do that. So, what I would recommend is cleansing everything. Every so often, rearrange your altar room. Okay, rearrange your altar room. Do work on new setups. Cleanse, sanctify, purify, bring in fresh energy. Okay, good things always come like that. They always do. And every time I've done this, I felt a more positive connection to the spirits that I work with. Okay. More so, you may want to look at seals and sigils, planetary, and things of reversals, protections, invisibilities, cloakings, and stuff like that that you can put up on your walls. Things that will hide your workings from your opponents. Okay, because this is stuff that will, at the end of the day, be either your rise to power like the phoenix being reborn from its own ashes, or your downfall and defeat. Okay, there are so many things that you can do as a practitioner, but you got to be willing to experiment and learn the trait, learn the tools and why you have them. Eventually you're going to be to the point where you don't need those tools as much. You got to remember that a lot of clutter may look like a grand, overachievement type stuff. You know, if you go underneath Google, for an example, and you type in ritual altars, you're going to see a lot of altars with a lot of clutter. I'm talking a lot of shit. I'm talking a lot of skulls, a lot of tools, a lot of seals and runes and you name it, to the even photos and symbols and like I said, it's a big thing. This is clutter. You don't need that much. This is more modern day belief that you need an expensive altar room, when in fact you only need a few pieces, 4 candles, a cauldron, a burn pot, even. For me, I use the cauldron for both burn pot and the offering. Okay, not just the chalice. You want the chalice, a cauldron. Um, you want your athame. You can use a wand if you will, but a lot of times it's mostly about energy transference. That's all it is. Energy transference, energy transfiguration. Even if we look at the alchemy symbol of transmutation, transmortification, utilize that negative energy for a purpose. Okay. Personally, if it was me, I would use that energy against the company that you work for. Use it for a client. Okay. Because if you're working with a client, you can use all that frustration to do baneful magic, curses, hexes, jinxes. But you can also use it to hinder an opponent. Let's say, for example, you have 2 or 3 people going for the same job. You want success? Trip up your opponents, your opposition. From there, you're able to utilize this and harness this magic for a singular purpose, to advance you. Remember that black magic Dark sorcery, it's the balancing factor. The world is not, the world is not in your favor. In fact, it's set, dead set against you. Step up to the plate and literally use what you do as a weapon. Balance the scales. Anubis was known for the heart and the feather on a scale. Osiris had the gold versus the feather. Now picture what we do in a world filled with white light practitioners. Its only purpose is to keep you down. Balance those scales, my friend. All right? Have a good one.